JHU is planning the 465,000 square foot DSAI, Data Science and Artificial Intelligence Institute, to be built over the next 5 years.
It's a sort of natural oasis in the middle of an otherwise bustling city. That's what attracted people like Hillary Gonzalez and Ed Schneider to live in the Wyman Park neighborhood. So when they heard Johns Hopkins University is planning to build a new 500,000 square foot AI facility right across the street from their homes, they saw some red flags.
How big the project is and the proximity to Stony Run and the wildlife that lives in the area.
For years, the state has poured taxpayer funds into Stony Run restoration projects, some of that work mandated by the EPA to clean up pollutants. The park and stream has slowly come back to life. One of Schneider's primary concerns is with the potential pollution and sewage runoff from construction and once the building is in use.
Stony Run flows into Jones Falls, which flows into Chesapeake Bay. So what happens here can pollute the Chesapeake Bay.
Gonzalez is focusing on protecting the wildlife here, especially the barred owls who provide the soundtrack to her evenings and could be driven away by the noise and bright lights.
We are in extremely close proximity to one of their regular nesting sites, which will be like right next to where they're going to be planting. It is absolutely going to impact our quality of life, but the animals can't speak for their quality of life, so, you know, some of us have got to.
People who live around here say they're not opposed to Hopkins expanding. In fact, they've supported other construction projects in the neighborhood in the past, but they say this one just crosses a line.
Is it necessary to build near such a sensitive area? That's all we're saying.
I want to see how Hopkins is going to prevent the obvious environmental damage to Wyman Park and to Stony Run.
There have been a few community meetings hosted by Hopkins and Councilwoman Odette Ramos where people have had the chance to voice their concerns. Councilwoman Ramos tells us, quote, JHU provided some models and worked to answer questions, but there are still major concerns the community has.
I am the Senior Director of Planning and Architecture for Johns Hopkins University.
Right? The issue is not if you were building a 100,000 square foot building, we wouldn't be here, right? The issue is you are building an irrationally gigantic building next to our houses because you are an exceedingly wealthy entity in this city.
I think this entire project is ill-advised, but it's really nothing should be built, in my view, to the west side of San Marcos.
It's looking at standing in front of the Agora building and looking up. It's a really large building. It feels like a large building. And when you look at the model and look at all of this dwarfs that Agora building. So I think we're not getting, or the people you're presenting this to aren't getting from a human scale, the enormity of this relative to what's on the site.
What are the square footages?
So as we are today, we're roughly 500,000 square feet.
With all the problematic aspects of this site, and there clearly are problematic aspects, and you're overbuilding that north part of the site. You're so clearly overbuilding that. I just can't understand why you aren't actually building this somewhere else, because you do have so much land, and there are other sites that would not be nearly as problematic as this. It's beyond me. I mean, people have talked to you before about put it somewhere else, and I really think you could get this done somewhere else a lot faster, with a lot less, a lot fewer impediments. And that's just why I just wanted to make that observation, because I think if we're being put through all this because you're running a race with other institutions, and that you're not going to catch up with them, but you're trying to do something at scale or whatever, it's not making sense to me at this point.
We certainly have spoken before about other locations, but we do believe application.
There's light and noise and other pollution coming from those buildings that were allowed to be constructed west of San Martin, where none of them belong in the park.
What's the estimate from like first brick removed or first shovel in the dirt to ribbon cutting? Just that.
So we said that before. We're intending to begin in 2025, the summer, okay, of 2025. And we really want to finish this by 2029. We want to have this complete, all finished by summer of 2029.
Something that's very equivalent to the size of the Baltimore Convention Center. It is 500,000 square feet. I just want to know, like, where your opinion changed on, from what you said in 2019 to now. Without being
Can you read me the quote again?
Yes. You said, it is not appropriate to build a 6-story building across from the houses on Remington Avenue.
Okay. So this, I'm assuming, was in 2019 when we were looking at the project that was being repealed through the PUD, which was placing a 6-story above-grade parking garage across the street. So that's really what we were talking about, the parking garage that would not be underground is what we're proposing now. So there was never going to be a building across from Remington Avenue. There was going to be a 7-story medical office building on the PUD that was where the Agora building is now. But what I was speaking about was the parking garage that was meant to be on the corner of Remington and Wyman Park Drive, which I still believe today that is incredibly inappropriate. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that it's 2 stories. There's no question it is taller than the houses across the street. That is true. I'm going to answer the question that came in from the chat. Currently along Remington, there is a very nice row of oak trees providing a green barrier between the neighborhood and the campus. Can this row of trees be preserved? As I've said many times, we know during construction, sometimes trees don't make it. And if trees don't make it, we're going to replace them. But we believe the existing canopy of trees certainly adds value to the neighborhood, and we'll do everything we can to keep them.
We already had trees come down, and I'm sure people will say, oh, you don't know that those trees came down because of the Agora building. I don't know if I'm saying that right, the building that's currently going on. But my heart, my soul, my existence of living on the street knows that those trees came down and our cars were barely spared, which is a simple thing in the grand scheme of all of this, because of the construction going on over there and the shaking of the ground, the movement. And so what is that going to do to our home? We've already had our street flooded numerous times because the infrastructure right now is not sturdy. It is not sturdy whatsoever. We are currently have vehicles coming down these streets. I know we've talked about this, but it all ties into the actual shaking of our homes and the places that we're trying to live because of these large vehicles coming down the street. There are semi-trucks coming down the street. The current construction that's going on, construction that's gone on in the past, people are frustrated. People are upset. People are coming with maybe some boxing gloves on because of what you've already done. What's already going on. I watched 28th Street close down the other day. Again, I don't know if it was, but I don't know why else there'd be a semi-truck coming down the street and completely blocking up the street. And so all of these vehicles coming in, to see the number of vehicles coming in the future is one thing, just the construction. There are vehicles that do not fit on city streets coming in because of this. How is that going to change?
San Martin Drive is going to be the entry point for hundreds of new automobile trips on a daily basis in and out. I can't imagine that 28th Street coming off of the JFX, Keswick up to San Martin, I can't imagine that those roads are going to be intact.
It seems like the city is not capable of maintaining the infrastructure that they would need to be able to make this situation viable for the surrounding residents.
There has to be an environmental study, there has to be a traffic study, and the city could potentially say, look, you've got to improve these streets, you've got to do this, it certainly is a worry. But also all of our bridges are literally in the state of total disrepair.
Two bridges in Wyman Park between the communities of Hampton and Remington are in need of repair. Several nearby current and proposed projects may require construction traffic to cross these bridges. Are these bridges capable of bearing the gross weights of cranes, loaded flatbeds, concrete mixers, and dump trucks? The Remington Avenue Bridge spans 40 feet over the walking path next to Stony Run. The existing bridge dates from 1961, and its last major renovation was in 1983. The underside of the bridge shows water seepage, cracks in the support beams, exposed areas of rusted rebar within the slabs of cement, a corroded and delaminating I-beam, and exposed patches of crumbling bricks. The southeast section of the bridge rests on a large crack in the retaining wall. Many areas collect water which freezes, expands, and causes further damage. The Wyman Park Drive Bridge spans approximately 200 feet over Stony Run and the parkland below. It was built in 1920, and the last major renovation was in 1960. Seeping water throughout the bridge has frozen and expanded cracks in the cement. Chunks of concrete have fallen away. An October 2022 inspection stated, quote, "The stream bank is beginning to slump. River control devices and embankment have widespread minor damage." We can see that periodic flooding of Stony Run has caused shifts in the boulders that support the eastern footing of the bridge. One boulder has visibly moved away a foot or so. Also, water has eroded a horizontal stretch of ground and seems to be undermining part of the eastern footing. Each flood of Stony Run changes the stream bed and appears to take away more support from the eastern section of the bridge. The upper roadway is flanked by crumbling and cracked cement walls. Open joints collect water which then seeps through the cement structure of the bridge. Are both of these bridges capable of bearing the gross weights of trucks with cranes, loaded flatbeds, concrete mixers, and dump trucks for current and proposed nearby construction projects? Are weight restrictions needed?
My question that I do not want you to answer right now, because I want you to think and figure it out as an institution, is how is this going to be different than the abysmal care that you have already given to our community? Because it's been abysmal.